So I see that 4 of the trustees are here, so I'm going to start the meeting at 7:01. Okay. And following the agenda, the first item is community input. So there are a number of community issues that are later in the agenda, but was there any other community input that anyone would like to share?
Oh, actually, yeah. I mean, I did just put out a survey. Maybe you all want to know some of those results. There's been a lot of input. There was almost 50 people responded to the survey, which has been yeah. So that's been. I don't know if this is an appropriate time to say that, but it's been really nice to hear from people about the programs.
I mean, I think as far as like a summary of what was said, that should be something maybe put on the next agenda.
Yeah, I wasn't done. Like,
yeah,
I didn't.
But it's just So that's good. That's about how much we had total the time that we did it a year ago, November.
Cool.
Yeah. So it sounds like, and it's been fairly recent that you sent it out. So there's probably still going to be a bunch.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, lots of people have responded, and it seems like there's been some really great feedback. But yeah, that's a good one for the next agenda. You're right, when it's complete.
So okay. Any other community input at this time? So next is the secretary's report. Vern, you're muted.
Thank you. There were a few corrections and spelling errors, which I received ahead of time and made adjustments already to the last meeting minutes. Are there any other corrections, additions?
So does someone want to move that we accept the January 11th minutes?
I move that we accept the minutes.
Second? Mark's waving. I'm taking that as a second, or is it a wave? Okay, thumbs up. Those in favor? Opposed? Okay, so that was the minutes for last meeting. Next on the agenda is the treasurer's report. And I have forwarded the timesheets to everyone to look at. And after this meeting, I will send them around to people for signatures to get to Becky the usual way. I'm just going to be forwarding Judy, Mariah's, and Marsha's because those are the ones that Becky needs to get for payroll. I did want to bring up something which has to do with the library director and staying on past her retirement. And I just wanted to clarify and maybe get in the minutes that my idea at the time that Jean said that we kind of volunteered to stay on past her date that she originally had set for retirement was that she would continue on at her current salary and benefits while she continued to be the director. And I guess, was that the understanding of the other trustees? Just to get it, I'm getting thumbs up from people. I guess the one comment I'd like to make is as far as the benefits, that's an annual amount and that we just, I think Jean's on, I don't see her, but I see a name that could be her. That the benefits would be just how many, how long of the year, a proportional amount. At the end of December, it would have been half of the way that her benefits work. And just, I wanted to clarify that and just have that in the minutes.
Asking whether you were going on what your understanding of compensation.
Well, I hadn't known if there hadn't been any discussion of it.
Okay, I was just thinking that we would continue on with your current pay. That that's when you were saying that you were staying on for the amount of time that you're on. So,
I filled out a time sheet, but I didn't add it up because it wasn't a matter of it was just documentation of that I did actually work.
yeah, and I think it's helpful too, just to have the list of the type of thing that you were doing, just in general too. So I am not planning, Jean, to forward that timesheet on to Becky, and that we're going to keep you with your salaried amount. Okay. So yeah, anyway, that's the plan. So so as far as the warrant, I didn't find anything. It was kind of quite a lot this month, and I think it was just the way that bills in the month of January overlapped with select board meetings, which kind of dictates that. We had one month that the only charge was Dead River. I actually had a question for Jean about something that Becky had done with the warrant. So this is for the Green Mountain Library Consortium. What does the C stand for?
Consortium.
Yeah, that the bill that was on this one was not the Listen Up one, but it was the vocal charge. And Becky put that under programs. Was that correct?
No.
I didn't think so.
I would want to look and see what we did in past years, but because that covers all of our cataloging. It's our connection with the rest of the.
I believe it's been memberships in the past.
It's a membership, yeah.
Okay, so I'll switch that to memberships, and then just confirming that the Listen Up, $100 of that was memberships, and the remainder was for books and other circulating materials.
Right.
Okay, so I'll just clarify that piece. So that was what I had for timesheets and warrants. The update on the current budget, Becky did have it updated the spreadsheet over the weekend, so I was able to look at that. The overall budget is in good shape. Just kind of some numbers to watch, but it doesn't matter because overall things balance. For whatever reason, internet and phone are a little high. I'm not sure why we didn't budget enough for that last year, but it's just a little bit over. It'll probably end the year over, but it that happens, and it's not that every item is over, so that's fine. Just if anyone's looking at it, postage is high, but postage is being offset by that grant from the courier service grant. So it looks a lot worse than it is. Like there's funding for that because of the new way that the interlibrary loan is being done. And I just wanted to
Will be over. The postage budget will still be over.
Right. Yeah, but we've got that $526 or whatever it was that's going to offset.
720, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this past month it was $60, so it's not like it's hundreds and hundreds of dollars, but it was $60 for postage.
Right.
Yeah. Supplies were high. I don't think there was any charge in the past month. I think I mentioned this at the previous meeting, but the spreadsheet hadn't been updated. I think that's fine because it's not something that's done monthly, and it was just the big library order. My one question is, was there anything that was under supplies? And now this goes back 2 months, but at the last meeting, somebody had mentioned that the Friends special project was going to support the story walks. Right. And I just wondered if that was the story walks going forward, or if any of the past supply budget should have been put under Friends special projects.
Yes, that it should be put under the special projects because they had committed to that. So it would be that all the story walk is this fiscal year.
Right. So then I guess if there was anything that was showing up elsewhere in the budget, that number needs to be switched over.
Right.
To the special projects. And if someone can get that to me at some point in the next week or two, and then I'll get it switched over. I mean, the money's there and we just need to have it in the right place. I'm looking at my notes, sorry. Okay, that was it for current budget. Any questions from anybody on the budget? Nexus fundraising update, and Billy, is that you?
Yes. Currently to date, we have received 88 donations for a total of $8,015. And I had talked to Eve earlier, 900 of those came in prior to our mailing out the appeal. So while they are going to be on the donation list and they're included on the spreadsheet, they're going to be in a separate that 900 will be moved over to just plain donations as opposed to donations from the appeal. So we got a little over 7,000 actually from the appeal. 7,100, no, $7,885 for that came in as a result of the appeal. And the other 900 came in because people donated ahead of time. So, and I have updated the list. There were not quite 300 people on the list. I don't know that that's all of the patrons, but that is now updated with all of the current addresses that we have, the people who did not respond, whose letters came back, and all of their addresses, and whether or not they donated in honor of someone or in memory of someone. So, and that's all I have. So.
Okay, Librarians Report. Jean?
Our librarians report is going to be sort of in two parts. Just encouragement that there's lots of circulation, even though it's going the odd way of the curbside. People are really getting onto that and making use of it. Our interlibrary loans, since we've been with the courier system, we have, because our collection is so good, we have had a lot of requests. We didn't before because the list of libraries is identified as to whether they're courier or not courier. So we were specifically not did not receive requests for items if it was anywhere else in the state. If you know that if it was available at any courier library, then we didn't get the request. Now that we're just sort of in the pool, Mariah and I are astounded at the number of requests, but it's fine because it's not costing extra because it's all with almost all with the courier. The only ones that aren't with a courier would have been the same as before for requests from libraries that aren't courier libraries. But that's really been all those sort of operational things. We've been purchasing books. Marcia's been going crazy, processing them and getting them out. And we've devised ways with the carts to have a browsing possibility there on the porch. There are 3 carts that full of the new books that people can look at through the windows, and people have made use of that in terms of making choices. But the agenda is long, and I want Mariah to be able to tell you about the real highlights of this last month for the report of the library. Mariah?
Hey, hi. So there was basically the most exciting thing I think so far is that we got a $1,500 grant from the Vermont Community Foundation for technology improvements, connectivity improvements, which is pretty awesome. And according to the survey so far, it seems like it really would be useful for us to have Chromebooks or laptops to lend out to the community to participate in programming or for other reasons. And so that's something that I did write it up for, but it's totally flexible. It can be changed. There's definitely been suggestions for a workspace that was usable during COVID, which would be a large can of worms, but I think it could be really useful if we could make that happen. I know, and I can see that being useful into the future as well. So that's exciting and something we'll be working on in the next month or so. I spoke with 2 other librarians today, the South Royalton librarian and the Chelsea librarian, who also received the grants, and discussed what we were planning on doing with it to kind of gauge how that's going to go down. And they're also doing the same things. They're finding that their Chromebooks are getting circulated more and more, and they've already got policies made. So that would make it easy. We don't have to reinvent the wheel on that one. Then the Generation Connect book club finished up this last weekend, and it was so wonderful. I really can't tell you all how exciting it was. There was 33 people signed up. A lot of people chose to do it just within their partners. I don't know if you all are familiar with how the program worked, but basically you joined with a partner, and then you could do the book club just with your partner, and we sent you all the materials, the book and crafting supplies and connecting ideas, or you could connect with the larger group. We had 2 book discussions with adults and children combined together last Sunday, and there was 8 people in each group, and it went really wonderful. There was some wonderful discussions, a lot of laughs, and even some tears. It was really wonderful. And then most recently we had the Zoom painting, which Becky Hoyt led, and it was so fun. Everybody made the same wolf painting from the book, A Wolf Called Wander, that we did, and I'll show pictures soon of them. They came out wonderful. We did a big screenshot of them all. So and then on last Saturday was really the big exciting day where Oge Mora, the children's illustrator and author, spoke live for us on our story hour. It was wonderful. 28 screens popped up. So I'm thinking it was impossible for me to count actual patrons for numbers, but I think 50 would be a good guess. And she was wonderful, and she read Saturday, and then I put up thank you Amu for the story walk to kind of coordinate with that. So those have been the real highlights in the regular programming, Lego Club, everything. And the book club, the chapter book club, has been all doing really wonderfully. So that's that.
I know that there's much to be done, so any questions?
I'm going to pull up the participant list so I can see raised hands, but I think the group is small enough that people can just jump in when there's time to ask questions or whatever. Okay, if no questions, we'll go on to old business. And the first item of old business is the energy audit. And I see that Fred Pond is here. Fred, did you want to talk about the energy audit?
Sure. Yes. Hi.
Okay. Hi.
So I have some contacts with Efficiency Vermont here in Barrie, and an associate with them gave me a name and a web page that I could share with you. But the overarching thing is to think about that Efficiency Vermont will offer a energy audit for the library. Typically, it would be someone coming down and looking through, but in these times, they will meet with someone with a camera and a smartphone. And I've done this at my house actually last fall in Barrie. And you just walk around with the individual and show them around the various things and answer questions. And typically there's a charge, but for virtual, it's free, which is nice.
a start to just think about the energy functions of the library. Remember that I had reached out maybe when I read somewhere about a water heater thinking about being failed. But I also remembered that the furnace has got a few years on her, so to speak. So I just kind of thought it's a chance to just get a baseline of what the library will need. And if you'd like, I'll just share the webpage from Efficiency Vermont and answer any questions. This is not something that has to happen tomorrow. And the board, the trustees have got, a few things on the stove already. But since someone had mentioned about the energy pieces, I thought this could be a contributing thing to put on your to-do list, maybe, later on when things calm down. But up to you what you'd like to do. Should I try to share the webpage for a moment?
Share it in the chat.
Yeah, it would be a share screen function that, oops.
I'm not the host.
It's disabled, so I can't do that.
Ben's gonna
Oh,
try to fix it.
while Ben is fixing it, does what I've just said make sense to everyone on the trustees and others?
Do you know what their timeline is? Like if somebody makes a request, is it months, weeks? I mean, like how long does it take for them?
I don't know. But I will share with you, I think his name is Paul Renier. I may be mispronouncing that a little, but Eve, I can share you the email with his correct email address. And you
was he in the email that you sent me earlier today?
Yes.
Okay, and I did send that to the other trustees.
Oh, good. Okay.
I wasn't actually able to do much with it because it was right before school started.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This isn't anything hot. This isn't
Okay.
anything hot, from my perspective.
Mhm.
But that it's a resource and right now free to help gain some knowledge of how to move forward with the energy. Oh, I'm getting a message from the host. Ooh, Fred, is that you can't chat or send attachments? Well, I think that's Ben. Hi, Ben. I'll try share screen again. Ah, it's working, Ben. And
There it is.
what do you see, folks?
We see your screen.
And fortunately,
Efficiency Vermont Business Energy Assessments.
yeah. So this is something you can peruse. It's available on the web, and I can share this web page with anyone who wants it. But don't be put off by business energy assessments. That's just where they categorize town buildings. And probably what we fit in there is under the phone consultations, but it's a smartphone. And if it's anything like the resource audit I had last fall here in my house in Barrie, then you take your smartphone and you show them your furnace, and you show them the water heater and you chat. It's a little bit, I'm scrolling down. I hope I'm not too fast here. But this is something for relating to Efficiency Vermont, but for you people who live in homes, anyone live in houses in Tunbridge? Yep. I have used Efficiency Vermont extensively in strengthening the tightness of my little house in Barrie. They've helped me change out some water heaters to actually a heat pump water heater, and they gave me a nice big rebate to do that. I did some insulating, and the libraries, had that renovation now 10, 15 years ago, but my house hadn't had renovations and insulation since maybe the 70s. So I'll cut it off there, but you're getting the idea that they're a resource for not only towns and buildings, but for individuals. Even new people to Tunbridge like you, Billy. There you are. I'll stop the share if that's okay with everyone.
Okay.
Thanks. So, as I don't want to volunteer anything because of the later agenda item about myself, but I think that with the idea, if we perhaps would be replacing the water heater or the furnace, I think that we're thinking the furnace had a little more life in it. But there were some suggestions in the past about the water heater and it being a heat pump and so forth.
Sure.
I think that it would be good if the energy audit happened prior to that, so it wasn't a big rush. And then you couldn't get them in and you didn't have any hot water. And
Oh, no, no, that's true. The energy audit starts first, right?
yeah, that would be good to just kind of
Practices.
happen, even if it's a year before something breaks.
Yeah, anything, best practices is that nothing before anything fails. Exactly.
So I guess I'm just like throwing that out as my opinion on this, but I guess I'll leave it to the other board members to think where to go. Teresa?
Yeah, I did actually, you did forward that email, and Fred knows that I've worked with Efficiency Vermont in the past. My husband and I net zeroed our home, and we worked very closely with them. They were great. And I was, when I picked up my trustee handbook, I noticed that we're supposed to do an annual, kind of once a year, check out the building, how are things? So this might be a really nice place to start, to say, this is where we are with the building. What can we improve upon? What is something we should be keeping an eye on? But I'd be glad to make the initial contact and see if we can get a timeline on how that audit might go. Unless anyone else is eager to get involved with that.
How do the other trustees feel about going ahead with getting the walk around free audit?
I think it's a great idea because like you said, if the water heater goes in a year, at least we would have an idea of what we wanted to replace it with rather than have to decide instantly.
I agree totally. I mean, there's issue with both those, water heater and the furnace. There's a very short life on that poor furnace too. So the sooner the better.
My computer's falling down, sorry. So I don't think we need to vote on, it's not going to cost anything, and it's just a case of getting it started, and Teresa is volunteering to do it. So that becomes an action item, I guess.
And I will jump in and mention that with Teresa, I'd be happy to jump in and join Teresa in meeting with the Efficiency Vermont, virtually.
Great. Thank you, Fred.
Sure.
That would be great. Thank you. I'll keep you up to date with what kind of information I get and any timelines we have. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I just need to check something. I'm just going to move the link that's in the chat elsewhere. Just give me a sec, sorry. Too many screens. Okay. I'll close the chat. So does anyone else have any questions for Fred before we move on?
And
Okay.
I'll go ahead and share an email address with people if they'd like to follow up later.
Thanks.
Excellent. All right, I'll go video silent now to keep your strong internet connection going here.
The next item on the list, I'm not sure whose this is, was the Friends book sale, when 5 college sale other. So the book sale item.
That was kind of, that was Kay Jorgensen via me.
Okay.
She is, and I don't know, she wasn't sure what was happening with the book sale. She's got lots and lots of books. So what she wanted to do was to explore other options of where she might be able to sell some of the books. And I didn't know if we needed to give her the approval to do that or what. There's someone that she gave me a name. I don't have it handy because can't switch my screens, but of some place that she thought might be able to sell some of the more valuable books. And she also was going to look into the 5 counties if she could get some of the books down there, because she's got way more than she can deal with. The other
And
thing is,
the 5 college, we wouldn't be getting anything for those, right? Those goes to
right,
scholarships.
those
for
were,
the 5
yes,
schools.
we've donated to them in the past when she has extra things or things that she knows won't sell. She has taken boxes of them down there. The other thing is that she would like to have a sale, but we had talked about before about not, as long as the library was closed, we probably shouldn't have a book sale at all, even if it was, unless it was outside, or maybe we could set something up. But she was wondering if we had any idea when that might happen, or if there was anything else that we might let her know about.
So I think the first question, the book sale belongs to the Friends. So I'm not sure,
Okay.
yeah, how much that piece of input. I mean, we could give our opinion if she just wants to know what we think
Right.
of the book sale. But the second piece about using the building and having a physical book sale, I think is definitely the people who are here to talk about the logistics of that. I mean, it can't be outside for a couple of months.
Right.
Mariah and Jean, how we had talked about it a couple months ago, but then things shut down more.
I mean, I think a piece of the puzzle would be that Jean and Marcia have started the process of getting their vaccinations. So protecting the staff is, it's changed a little bit. And I think that that's just something to consider, not necessarily like an opinion, but just, I feel better. So that's something that I think about with appointments, or possibly appointments in the book sale, especially the book sale, because they could be potentially alone down there, and just to pay would be the only contact with people. So that's just something to consider.
That's how we had left it earlier, right? When people were coming in for appointments, was that the book sale could be attached to the appointment. Had that started, or was that just a conversation?
No, we did that. When people wanted to come in for the book sale, we would let them just go down, during their appointment and buy a book. So, right,
Do you know,
Can
do you know, Billy, was Kay thinking of more than that?
I don't think so. Other than the fact that she was going to try maybe to have some sales that were non-contact,
okay.
selling things through a couple of other sources.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm talking to some of our friends at the library.
that's great. Yeah.
So,
But
okay,
I
I'll tell her. And then I think that since we had decided that before, once the library has appointments, then the book sales could start again, as long as the numbers matched what was allowed.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll let her know that then.
Does anybody else from the board have input for Billy to talk to Kay?
Hey, Lola.
Okay, the next item is also Billy's, which is the library director's retirement announcement that had to do with the Tunbridge Quarterly.
Okay, I basically just changed, and I sent that around today to everyone. Did you get that one, Teresa? Okay. Most of it was what we had written previously. The only thing we had to change, we had said in the quarterly, it was supposed to say that her retirement was at the end of the year, and I changed it so that it was open-ended, and mentioned that the committee was working on it at this time. So I will send that if everybody on the is okay with that, I can send it on to Janet Zug. What they did is they put it out on Facebook, the things that were missed, because we weren't the only one. The things that were missed that didn't go into the quarterly, she put out on Facebook. So should I do that? Does
I think
anybody have any
so.
objection?
Other trustees?
And
Okay.
then will we get into the next quarterly as well then?
Yes, yeah.
That'll be, let's see, we had January, so it'll be
Yeah.
April.
Yeah, I think that, it might need to be updated
By then,
by what Billy put together, because it talks about the hiring committee and it's kind of preliminary, that there might be more. But I think the intention is to get it on paper.
right. I don't know why it wasn't in, but like I said, it wasn't because it appeared that it wasn't something because of us, because we weren't the only ones whose item was missed. I
It
don't
was
know.
like a whole page was gone or something.
Oh, okay.
I
I
think.
didn't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but it was just like hearing who else it was. It was just
Mhm.
Well, we can watch for the date when Janet sends around, the call for items.
Right.
It's actually in the current quarterly, her deadline for the next one, but that's downstairs. So
Okay.
yeah, but it's something good to have on our radar. Are we set with that?
Yep, I think so.
The next item is changing morning hours. So we talked about this last meeting, but it hadn't been warned. So now to discuss it, to actually change morning hours, I guess, or talk about doing that. So I don't know, Jean or Mariah, did you want to speak to this? A suggestion for the change, like what
I've been
mornings
keeping,
instead?
I have been keeping the morning hours, the 9 to 12, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
And what was your suggestion?
Well, I didn't know whether it was of the major importance to be those hours. We don't have a lot of requests coming in during that period. My question was, as long as I worked the hours, how important people felt, and I, open to that. I've been doing that. How important it was that it be those hours, or whether it was just, hours getting the work done.
I think what you were saying is you didn't know if it had to do all mornings of the week.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Ben had.
But you had said you were interested in having some times when you didn't have to be in all mornings of the week.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, last time I think, Jean, what you suggested was that you keep the Monday hours and eliminate the Wednesday and Friday hours, is what I recall. I don't know if I'm recalling correctly.
That's what Ben said he remembered.
I think that as long as it's advertised, I mean, everything is a little bit, everything is moving because of COVID and different things happening with COVID. And I don't think it should come to a big surprise to anyone when something changes, so it's not that it has to be these days. So
I would just like to say I did talk to Jean about the hours, and I've also, with being part of the hiring committee, we've been looking at a lot of other libraries, and I've noticed that most of the ones I looked at locally seems as though they've had a reduction in hours due to COVID. And we, on our posted open hours, normal life, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we were at 22 hours. And with the current hours we're asking Jean to be in, it's actually up to 24. So we've actually added 2 hours during COVID, as opposed to cutting back.
yeah, so I'm wondering, where did these hours come from? Like, why are we open 3 mornings a week?
I thought it was a good idea at one point.
Well, there had been discussion, and there certainly will be discussion when the library is able to be open to whatever degree to the public, that we would want to have some morning hours, a decision of when and how many and so on would need to be made. But there was a basic agreement on the board that looking forward, would want to have some morning hours.
Right.
But it just, this particular situation, the contacts people make are by and large not telephone calls in the morning. So there's not a lot of
I think we were preparing.
external action during the mornings. So my question had to do with, was it a matter of getting the work done, or was it a matter of and I'm open to that if it's for people to feel like they could contact, in the mornings, so that all those are potential contact hours.
Jean, I think that because they can't actually come to the library, they can still contact you in the morning if that's when they can, by email. So that it really doesn't seem like it's necessary that you're actually there in the morning. I don't know what the other trustees think, but that's my feeling. That because they can contact you whenever they want, they could contact you in the middle of the night if they wanted. You could answer when you're there. So where before the morning hours were because people could only come in the morning, and that doesn't have anything to do with what's happening right now.
Right, because I remember from like the last survey that it was a request that people wanted to be able to be at the computer to do job searches and stuff. Like it doesn't have, it's not tied to these needs, I don't think, at all. So, I mean, I'm personally fine with changing the hours of live availability.
And I'm of the opinion that perhaps we don't need to be there any of the 3 mornings, Jean. If you are available by email other times, then I don't really see that it's necessary for you to actually be in the library any morning, if it's more convenient to do your hours some other way.
I'm just going to say that I think we were anticipating people coming in. Only one person could come in at a time, and that was
Right.
If that should happen again, we need to refigure.
Right, but
Yeah.
right now it doesn't seem to make any difference.
Once people could come in,
Just
then
change the website.
that would be
We're
important.
gonna have to change the website.
Mhm.
How do the other trustees feel about
The-
morning hours?
The only issue I can see, I know, Jean, that you try to have the books that people want available as quickly as you can. I know you get them out in the same day to put them on the bench for people to come and pick them up. So if the morning is one morning a week may be sufficient for people to call in, if they need to call in as opposed to emailing. How do you feel? I know you try to get things out, to the public quickly.
Well, we certainly do, and Mariah's been a great help on that as well. We do try to respond as quickly as possible, but my question had to do if there was flexibility, at least some of the time, that didn't have to be necessarily 9 to 12, that I could come at 8 and stay till wherever, and certainly answer the phone if I were there, but I didn't know how people felt of the importance of someone being there,
How do you know?
those specific hours.
That sounds like the
How do people think of there being one specific morning, and then after that it's when Jean can do
Okay,
Do other people think one morning would be good? And that's what's posted on the website?
It should be sufficient, I think.
Jean, you can pick which morning.
does that feel good?
What works well with what you've noticed people doing, plus works well for you. Jean, is that okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So are we set with that?
I hope so.
Sound good?
So what,
Okay.
what are the, so are we going to confirm what the hours will be then? Is that?
Jean, are you ready to say which morning?
Yeah,
Okay.
Sound good? Does Monday sound good, Gene? Would
just,
Monday,
just, I'm, what is it?
would Monday sound like a good day?
Monday is fine. Monday is absolutely fine.
Good day in between. Like, it's not a-
Yep.
So 9 to noon on Monday.
So is Monday okay? And
And just have that be on the website, so if the website can get updated.
I'll
okay.
change it.
Okay. So I'm going to move on to new business. The first item is my resignation. So I had planned to stay on through town meeting. One town meeting was March 2nd, and it's been moved to May 22nd. So I actually waited until the select board did that officially, which was their last meeting. I went to that meeting when they voted to change it to the 22nd. This was after it had all been signed and gone through all the legislative stuff that needed to happen. So I was just thinking that the end of February made sense, that then a random Tuesday the following week, since it's not town meeting anymore. So I believe that the select board will be voting on my letter tomorrow. I didn't look at their agenda, but I talked to Wendy and she was putting it on the agenda. So I'm resigning as of the end of this month because it should have been town meeting. So the next item is electing new officers. So right now we have no chair. I am the treasurer. Fern is the secretary, and Billy and Mark are at large. Is that what it's called? So Billy?
I had a suggestion. Since someone will be new at the next meeting, perhaps it would make more sense to wait until the next meeting to actually elect the officers. I know Eve mentioned that we would need someone to run the meeting, the next meeting. So if someone volunteered to do that, then I think that makes more sense, because the person who's coming might also wish to be someone. So
I guess I'm at large as well at this point.
Oh, I'm sorry, Teresa, you are.
Because
Because you're on the hiring committee that you've got a title.
I'm keep thinking about that book, the 100 Hats, where he stacks. I don't know why, but I've actually have spoken with Eve, and I was the treasurer, and then Eve and I overlapped a year, I believe. And then I handed the book to her and I was willing to take that back unless someone else was really looking to step up. I don't know who might be appointed, who would be able to step in to the treasurer piece. It is probably one that it's good to have some, maybe some background knowledge. Now, keep in mind that I'm only on until the May meeting now, the
May
town
22nd.
meeting, because I'm just a fill-in, and whomever the select board puts in for Eve will also only really be appointed until the town meeting, which I guess at that time, we could opt to stay or others could step in or whatever. So, but if anyone else would rather do it differently, I'm comfortable taking on the treasurer part of that until the next town meeting.
I think that makes more sense, because you already know what's happening. And if it might only be for a couple of months, then it doesn't really, I mean, it would take someone else longer than that to figure out what's going on. So that makes a lot of sense for you.
And I've worked with Becky, in town. We kind of already have a rapport. So I think it would be a pretty smooth transition for that period of time.
So should we, I think we have to vote on this. So vote on Teresa. So Teresa, I'm going to actually ask you this. When do you want to start? Do you want to start on the 28th of February? Do you want to start mid-February or something?
Yeah, I mean, I think a transition would be a good idea. So,
So want to say February 15th? I mean, there's nothing to do. But just to have an official date until next meeting, there's, it's not a lot of stuff to do. So does February 15th work for you? And
that's
I will
fine.
bring the binder to your house.
Sure. Yeah, we'll get together.
Okay, so
Hold on a second.
so I guess I don't know if I nominate you. So I nominate Teresa to take over for me as treasurer as of February 15th through
May
up
22nd.
until the May 22nd town meeting. So it would be the meeting following that, if you were staying on, that new
Right.
new people would be elected to different positions. So for Teresa, until the time that after town meeting, that there should be new elections of who's doing what as trustees. So those in favor of Teresa taking over the treasurer position as of February 15th?
I agree, totally.
Mark?
It looks like it would be June 15th. Does that
The
sound
next meeting after that, yeah. So through June 15th then.
14th, June 14th.
If you're still there, somebody else will have to do it otherwise. Okay, so I didn't see that Mark voted, but I think enough of us did that you are going to be treasurer.
I vote for, sorry, I had to call. I vote for E for treasurer also, if
Teresa,
Teresa, I mean.
I don't want to.
No, I'm sorry.
So Fern, did you want to stay on for now as secretary?
We can't, oh,
Well, I guess, I mean, whatever our choices.
Well, at least until whoever's replacing me is here. So we won't even, because you're already secretary, we won't do anything with that.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Don't have a chair.
Yeah, so there's not a chair. So waiting for the new person for that decision to be made next time. But so I guess this wouldn't be to vote for a new chair, but just the person to run meetings for the next meeting. Who would like to do this?
I would not like to run the meeting. Mark?
Well, he's not here, so.
It's not there, so let's make Mark do it.
Okay.
So I guess, I mean, just somebody's gonna need to run the March meeting.
So can I just ask, so just trying to catch up, and I kind of do have the two committees in my head, so I'm just trying to really make sure I understand who draws up the agenda. Would that be to the chair?
Usually it's the chair, but I've been sending it out since we didn't have one.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
we've
actually-
kind of been divvying up the chair things, but like as far as like big chair decision stuff, that hasn't been happening.
Right,
But like I'm doing the meeting.
right.
I know.
Most importantly, we formulate an agenda. It gets posted in a timely fashion to stay within our guidelines. And then you need someone to just take through the agenda during the meeting.
Right. I mean, eventually, when the hiring committee is coming up in the agenda, but eventually there does need to be a chair having to do with the hiring of the new director.
Yeah.
I think that we're fine, through February, the way that we've been going. But I think March, there needs to be something.
Yeah.
Definite. So.
Do we know that the select board is going to have someone in place for our March meeting, a new appointee?
That was when I talked to John prior to sending my letter out. The reason I talked to him as early as I did was so that there'd be the two meetings, so that he could vote or the select board would vote on at this meeting, and then there's another select board meeting in 2 weeks.
Right.
So they should have plenty of time, and that was their intention. So yeah, there should be a full board for the March meeting. Okay, so I guess we'll leave it at that we have a treasurer and a secretary and the chair is still pending. The next item is discuss Zoom meeting hosting. I'm not sure whose item that was.
Not mine. I don't know whose it was.
Teresa, were you raising your hand or?
I put it on the agenda because that had come up a couple of times. I think Ben had offered, he needs to speak up to tell us what he meant, but he did offer to share the hosting for other meetings, primarily say for the hiring committee or times that he's not available for the regular board meeting.
I know for our last hiring meeting, I reached out to Mariah and she was able to put up the Zoom link for us. And then I don't really understand the whole process that much, but then the hosting, I believe Ben was available for us for that. So I guess we just maybe need a backup plan if Ben is pulled away, that we do have someone else who can manage the Zoom, so that between the hiring committee meetings and the regular board meetings, we are covered.
Yeah, so there needs to be someone who knows how to get in as the host. So for example, Mariah, you do?
Oh, yeah, no, I think that it would just solve the problem if we were allowed to share the password with the hiring committee and the trustees. I don't know if that's okay with Jean and Ben, but I think that that would be a good solution.
Yeah, I mean, today I would have been fine hosting it when I got on, but I'm leaving and I'm not doing next month's meeting. So, but I host lots of Zoom meetings. So yeah, Ben, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going to go in a different room because it's echoing in here. Right. Sorry about that. Just one thought is, I guess we need a confirmed host. That I'm sorry if I made that difficult at any point. And because I've tried to be available, and I'm sorry I wasn't responsive on the other scores. The one thought I had was, if you have executive session, that can be tricky if the host, that's gonna be tricky regardless, because when you come out of executive session, people need to be allowed back in, and I don't know how that's done, but it struck me as that maybe under those circumstances, it would be easier if one of the board was hosting in that kind of a meeting. That was my, and I also wanted to make it available. I felt like that's, the board's, unless the board has different feelings about it, it should be available for the board to host if they feel comfortable doing that.
Just as far as the executive session piece, the select board used a breakout room.
Okay, so you know more about that than I do. So that's.
Yeah, that would be, Wendy set up the breakout room. They went off and then they brought themselves in, and then no one could join their breakout room. So that was just something to do. But I think that it would be good for someone on the board to be able to host.
So in order to have a breakout room, just to clarify, that doesn't have to be the host that manages that?
The host managed it, but then didn't go. So I guess had Wendy wanted to enter the breakout room, she could have, but nobody else can.
Okay. All right. So it doesn't have to be, it wouldn't have to be, as long as you have a confirmed host, and like you said, it's good to have a backup where it's set up so that the board members can jump in if that's necessary,
Yeah, and then also, you're going to a lot of meetings. I mean, it would take some of this off of you.
Yeah, I will admit that I'm not paying full attention every second of every meeting, but I was trying to make sure that if there was a need that came up, I would be available. So, yeah, right. You're right. I've come to appreciate the rigor of your schedule. So, yeah. So, yeah, I think that's something I want to learn about the breakout room, just and so we can spread that around and we confirm meetings, and I feel better not sending passwords over email or on Zoom meetings, right? But I could make that password available different ways, including over the phone and on the, just so that you guys are handy. So you say, oh my gosh, we got to have a meeting. Let's start it. You have that. You're equipped.
So is
Okay.
this something that we're saying is the library's decision rather than the trustees, that giving the Zoom password, or are the trustees making the decision? I don't know.
Well, all I'm saying is it's available, and I'm just saying transferring passwords discreetly is a good idea. Just because so I could leave it in the trustees folder, and so you guys could have, there's no problem with it being used. I just was saying,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I don't see.
Yeah, so I think just like prior to a meeting, just figure out who's going to be the host, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Confirmed host, and yeah, that's good.
Does anyone have any questions? Either the trustees or the hiring committee? Does the hiring committee have a chair?
Yes.
Okay.
Anna Deckard is the chair.
I see her.
And it's our chair.
So just as far as somebody perhaps wanting to be the host or not.
I'm happy to have access to that. And I guess, Ben, you can let us know ahead of time if there's, whether it's one that you would be available for and can host, or if we should
Sure.
host it ourselves.
Yeah, when I yeah, I'll keep, maybe you can just add my email to your email or the library's email. Yes, I'll give you my email, will be a little easier. And if you're asking, oh yeah, can you be there for the host, if that's all right. I think I have all your emails somehow, so I can.
Sure. And so then we can set up, if we have access to that, we can set up the link
Sure.
for the Zoom, but I think we would then still, well, Fern, I think has been then posting it on the website. We don't have access to post it, but.
Mariah, you've been posting it the last couple of times, haven't you? The Zoom link?
I posted it the last time, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Great.
So it's either Ben or Mariah do the Zoom link.
Okay.
And then I do the rest.
That might be easier if there's not more people doing that part, as long as you can get it in a timely manner. And I'm sure between the two of us, we can do that. Because it can be a little bit of a maze when you go in to try to schedule a meeting and yeah.
I'm happy to do that. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Okay. The next item I put on here, and I'm not remembering what one of the things was, change in town meeting date to May. We already talked about that. One of the things I have on there is town report. And I think that maybe that was just kind of an update for whoever's gonna be treasurer. So Teresa, I can just talk to you about what I've already sent for the town report. They were talking about, they were talking with Betsy, I think that's who it was, at the last select board meeting. And I went back and looked at the minutes, and I didn't see the conversation show up in there, but it's really not that important. She was like backing up to say when the real deadline is going to be for the town report, if it's moved to May 22nd. But I've already done that, thinking that I had to do it back in November. Like I was doing that in November, December. But I can fill you in more on that. The other item on here that had to do with the moving isn't a trustee, isn't something the trustees do, but I thought it should kind of get out there in a meeting. Something that came up at the select board meeting, the last select board meeting, having to do with the May 22nd change was lunch. It's the Friends who do lunch at town meeting. And it's going to be weird if it's on the fairgrounds in the big building with no walls. So just kind of a heads up for Friends or whoever would be doing the lunch this year, if there will be a lunch this year. They've actually already, they were like kind of talking about it and making jokes about having an ox pole and stuff, but it was kind of on the radar of the select board at that meeting, that people will still have to eat, and are people going to bring their own food, or is the library still going to do a lunch? So again, that's not the trustees who do that, but I just wanted to have it out there for people to hear that it's something that needs to be thought about. There probably needs to be way more details about what's happening in May before anyone truly thinks about it, but it's not something that can be planned 1 week in advance either. So that's all. That was me, the town meeting date thing, and that's really a select board item. The next thing we already started talking about a little bit, but Mariah, it's discussed the new connectivity grant received. Was there more that you wanted to ask or say about it?
Nope, I think I covered it before. It's good.
Okay.
Unless anyone has a question.
Did anybody else want to talk about the connectivity grant? Okay. And I put something on that's, I'm kind of jumping it in, and it's under new business, that's not on the agenda, that I saw an hour ago when I read the select board minutes. I didn't stay for the entire meeting, that last meeting. But I guess that they have hired a snow custodian, and the library was listed as one of the buildings. This was at the 126 meeting. Is that something that the library is aware of, that there's a person in charge of snow?
Yeah, Andy is doing it. Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to make sure, because I just saw that. Okay, we're up to the update from the hiring committee. And there are 2 agenda items there, but maybe I'll just, can I hand this over actually to either the hiring committee or Teresa? The interview process was the first item. Did somebody want to report on the interview process?
So I think those 2 items were actually more questions
Okay.
that we had. So those were, and I don't know whether we want to start with those questions or maybe kind of share what we've worked on, and then you can kind of see where the holes are.
Well, Anna, if you don't mind, I think I would like to maybe just, can't say the word, preface it. What we kind of had a plan, we being the hiring committee, kind of had a plan on what we were going to do tonight. But I think since we last met, the board has had some conversations about the overall process. And basically, the timeline being of the items that need to happen. And when I was looking it over, I feel like we're moving through the steps, even though it maybe never was completely laid right out. So the trustee did approve of a selection search committee, so that's good. And I'm not entirely sure, and being new on the trustee, if the trustees would say that they had approved a hiring plan, or is that something that maybe would be part of the next step? And then the last piece on that is the charges that the hiring committee was given, which I think fell right along with the response we had gotten from Lorna Keenan. Lara?
Yeah.
Hours, responsibilities, and job description. We've pretty much tackled that. The hours are kind of still not defined. And that's what we're ready to report about tonight. And then the second piece was position parameters and reopening the search, which would be the next piece. And then we kind of jumped to the community input piece. So we've kind of covering all our bases, but we might not be going in the order that it looks like it's dictated in by the guidelines that the Vermont Libraries puts out there. So I think if we share the job description, then I don't know, Anna, do you think then it would be timely to regroup and then talk about the community piece in our conversation? Because if we went in order of what's prescribed as apparently the order in which you would, execute this whole process, we would do the job description. Then we would talk about the opening of the search, having that, an advertisement type piece. And then they suggest the community. And we've kind of sandwiched it. we're missing our mac and cheese filling there. So
I just want to point out that it seems to me from what you've said that the community input is really not the last thing. I mean, if you're asking what the community is looking for in a librarian, certainly that, or from the library, that would certainly be something that you would want to think about before you did the search.
So we have an updated job description that's ready for the trustees, and we have a proposal for what we think community input should look like in terms of gathering it and how it fits in the process. But I think we weren't totally clear on if there are already guidelines for what the interview process itself should look like, or the entire timeline of when do you want us to kind of have, what's the end point of this and what timeline should we be working with? So I think that was my interpretation of those missing pieces of info that we need. But we do have that community input in the job description. We've got that ready to share with the trustees.
And
tonight.
could I just jump in here and ask if the trustees who are not on the hiring committee, did you get a copy of the job description? We sent it around Saturday morning along
Yes,
with the description.
I was going to say, I thought that we had gotten that.
Yeah, great. Okay. That was just so that you could read it ahead of time if you wanted to. And so, yes, also the community input piece will be new to the trustees.
Thanks.
I'm gonna try to pull it up. Who sent the email with the job description?
That was me.
Okay, I'm actually not sure if I got it, because I was talking to Teresa about it because we were talking some number stuff.
So Eve, I sent it on behalf of the committee to the Tunbridge trustees email.
Okay.
Saturday morning. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I was just looking in there. I can't, I've got too many things up and I can't go into that as well. I have 2 email accounts up and the third one would be a good idea.
Okay.
Okay. So yesterday, I had sent to the trustees a really bad scan of a sheet, but then Fern made a better scan of the sheet that talks about search committees for that. And Teresa, were you going to share that with the committee, or did you share that with the committee?
You're muted. You're mute. You're mute. You're mute.
Thank you. Talking away. I was going back through, I was reading through that packet that you're referring to and some information in the trustee manual. And I really felt like it was a timely thing for the board to go ahead and continue with the charges to the committee, to the hiring committee. So that's why I was trying to explain, maybe not very well, about from what I pulled from the email from the state contact and from this piece. And one of the pieces in that booklet is actually a timeline of how they would expect things to happen. And it's a 3 to 6 month period. But I feel like we're in a really good position. I mean, we've got a very thorough job description done. which really pulled from local references and maybe even some border across the state. And the community piece, it looks like that's going to be really thorough. So I guess I'm not sure, Eve, where.
Well, there was the bulleted points, and that's what I was just thinking. I mean, it's not the whole timeline and stuff. It was the one pager that was just what a selection and search committee does. And I think that it was kind of, and what I was thinking was in the back of my mind, we were thinking that we would have a search committee do this. And it then, says things like everyone should get the same interview questions, and, it has more detail to that. Yeah. But there was just 6 bulleted points that I guess I'll just read them. But it was just saying, if you have a search committee, this is what the primary activities of this committee include: develop and place advertising in the position, articulate a process for fairly reviewing all applicants using a matrix or other instrument and identifying those who will be invited to interview, conduct initial interview of the applicant, schedule and conduct the interviews, conduct reference checks, and present a recommendation hire to the board. Now, this is many steps later, but there was one of the meetings in January, kind of a question of, what is the search committee ultimately doing? And that I thought was a really nice summary. So I realized that this is several steps beyond the community input and the job description piece, but I just wanted to kind of share that with the hiring committee. And I don't know if the other trustees were kind of thinking along the same lines of what I was thinking of, but that being the ultimate charge of what the search committee is doing as far as looking for a candidate.
I agree, Eve, because it's very succinct and it spells out all of the charges I believe that the hiring committee should be engaging in.
Could I just clarify? So is part of our charge to actually develop the ad and place it? Is that on the committee?
Yes.
Okay.
And
so Fern made a really nice scan of this. Mine's bad. So I think that if that can be passed along to everybody, and this was from something that we got from the state.
Okay.
From Laura.
I'm muted, sorry.
Yeah.
I can send that page off, the scan off to the hiring committee. Each point is explained a little more in depth also.
Yeah, it's just that it had those bullets, which I
It's a good checklist for all of the hiring committee to be on the same page and know exactly what their chores will be.
I think before we arrived at the spot of actual recruitment, we needed some clarification on what we were recruiting for.
Yeah.
And I think it wasn't entirely clear what the job was. So I understand those points that were just outlined around how to actually place a job ad, receive resumes, interview, and so forth. But without clarity on what it is that we're advertising for and hiring for, I'm not really sure how successful we could be in bringing forth a candidate without your vision on what the job was.
I think
we did start.
I think that was part of the issue. We had a different vision for it. It appeared that our vision of what we were expecting was different than what the community was expecting. And so I guess in my personal feeling was that the committee would also come up with what their vision of they wanted the director to be. Because it wasn't clear that people felt that our vision was correct.
And I think that was the message that was portrayed to us as the committee too, was to come up with a real succinct, comprehensive job description, which was the first step that that half of our committee did. We broke into 2 separate groups. Had a job description committee and a community input kind of subgroups, if you will. It sounds like the draft job description was sent to folks, and I was checking, here, so maybe I can share this. And I don't know that you want to look at this line by line tonight or what have you. I'm not really sure to what degree you want to go through this tonight. But what was sent to you and what you see here on your page represents a referral of, I believe it was East Corinth, Sharon, Chelsea, and the Tunbridge job descriptions that we were able to gather. So 4 or 5 different local job descriptions, in addition to the general guidelines from the library directors, American Library Association. I think Catherine or Teresa tracked that down. So we tried to look at all of these area ones and then pull what seemed like the best out of each one, and everything that would be some sort of a heading that you'd want, I would imagine you'd want as trustees to have covered. And you'll see in the position description on the front, that includes quite a variety of things, from collection management, financial management, oversee of information technology and facilities, employee management. So could be a pretty big job. All of the bullet points down below then further flesh out each of those categories into subcategories. Doesn't necessarily mean the director does all of these things. These could be delegated to other staff, but it includes the full picture of all of those pieces under the umbrella of the director, including partnering with the Board of Trustees, reporting relationships, and educational requirements. So I think just for me, in terms of recruitment, I would need some input from the actual trustees on, did we land where you think we should be landing? Is this the job you would like recruited for? Are these the correct skills, attributes, educational requirements, and so forth? And once that's agreed upon, we can start developing an actual ad and screening candidates and so forth. But this piece seemed really important to make sure that we had clarity on before we moved into actual recruitment. So I don't need to leave that on the screen, but I just thought I'd do a quick little history into how the group arrived at that. And it's still, draft, open for discussion, feedback, comment, revisions, and so forth.
I think that how that matches up with the hours for the librarian is what needs to kind of happen next. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that, but I mean, certainly we had anticipated it being 20 hours a week, and at 20 hours a week, one person could certainly not have done all that without assistance. So I think that was part of what we felt that the committee could do, was to determine how many hours the librarian would work, and then how we would have the assistants filling in the other pieces of that. I don't know, how does the rest of the board, what does the rest of the board think?
Well, I just want to say, when I was
I agree with Billy.
trying to get a place of where we were, what Billy just stated, I found on the January 5th, it was a special trustee meeting, not a regular meeting. And it basically, I think that's when we put out the initial charge to the hiring committee. And number 1 was stated the hours, responsibilities, and job description. So I think responsibilities and job description, would you agree we pretty much took care of there? But it's the hours piece is still open. And then it went on to talk about the position parameters and reopening of search and the community. So I think maybe, Jenna and Catherine and I kind of did 2 out of the 3 pieces of that. The hours did not come into play. There was quite a bit of conversation about them. I know I talked to Eve about the budget part of it. And I made up 3 different scenarios. One at 20 hour, talk off the top of my head, one at 24 hours, which puts the person eligible for retirement, and then one at 30 hours, which doesn't even really make them a full salaried person. It would depend on the hourly rate. But the other part that came out, and anyone on the hiring committee, if you want to speak up, I'm just saying that the other part of that was saying to the job description what staff would be available to you. So you look at this pretty extensive job description, And you think, wow, that's a lot for one person. And if we're saying 20 hours a week, if you go back and look at Jean's timesheet, she's just handed in, it's a lot more than 20 hours a week. But you have two assistants and their hours. So I don't know where those decisions get made as to how many hours you offer the director to work, or do you offer a less number of hours and the two other positions? And I think that's something maybe the board would have more say on.
Can I ask one question right off? How many hours do we have totally? Like if we're talking about how much to apportion to the director and then how much is left for assistants within the current budget, and I realize it varies a little depending on what the hourly rate is, but it would just help to know how many hours basically we had to talk about what made sense.
So the numbers that I was working with earlier, and then looking at what Teresa and I were working with over the weekend, it looked like, given current numbers for insurance, and that we've got this pot of money that's in the budget for next year and the end of this year. I think, Teresa, it was the 24 hours a week for the director, 10 hours each for two assistants plus the custodian. So the custodian's at the amount that the custodian is currently working at. And then it was two assistants at 10 hours a week each plus 24 hours for a director. And that more or less worked, right, Teresa?
That did work in the budget. We came in with, I think we were about $1,500 or $1,600 off, but
yeah, but we like did maximum pay for everything, and yeah. So, but it was pretty close for that, Catherine.
So that would, so if you have a person, a new hire at 20 hours a week, there's no retirement figured into that figure. It's a 4.65% you figure in. So if you raise it to 24, because according to the town treasurer, as soon as any of the average timesheets come in and they're showing 24 or more, she has to give them the retirement piece. That's a law. So we figured it at 24, and really a nice incentive for such a big job to maybe have a retirement piece attached to it. That still does not put the person at what would be considered salary. To be considered salary, and Eve, I did this after we last spoke, you would have to be at the 30 hours and you'd have to be at $23 or more an hour to hit that salaried mark, which would eliminate any concerns about overtime or any of those issues. And that, to financially cover that, you would only be able to have one assistant. So just quickly, you could have a 20-hour-a-week person with no retirement attached, could go up to 23.95 hours a week, but not over, 2 assistants.
But we also saw that 24 hours with retirement still could have 2 assistants.
And the 24 hours a week would have the 2 assistants and would have the retirement piece. And then if you started to go over up to the 30-hour mark, you could not afford to keep the 2 assistants as well for the current budget that we have stated out. Does that make sense?
So I guess I understand the committee asking for our input on this, but I guess one of the reasons for the committee was that kind of brings us back to assumptions that we were making, that we're trying to get maybe more input on it or something, because the idea of the 20-hour with 2 assistants plus the custodian, I think actually we're doing 2.5 assistants. That is what we were assuming, and that assumption was not, I mean, we're kind of going, people need to give more input to this, because that was one of the problems.
So I guess another thought, but I want to back up and say, unless I'm wrong, I don't think we added anything to the director job. and I'll look to other folks who maybe have looked at the draft to tell me if I'm wrong about that. I think it's a comprehensive listing, but I don't believe we expanded the scope of the role at all. So it would lead me to believe that the role could still be done under whatever the current configuration of hours is. So I'm hoping I'm right about that. I'm open to, and I don't know if the trustees are open to, or other folks on the committee are open to, if long as we have the essential functions of the job description correct, we have the education correct, we have the reporting relationship, if all of those things seem accurate to you, you know, perhaps the discussion on hours comes from our candidate pool and who we think's the best fit for the job. My experience with small numbers of suitable people for certain jobs lends itself well to flexibility and to really looking at what applicants are looking for, if someone's a really good fit, and then can I be flexible to create that experience for them if that's who we want in the job. So I don't know if that fits with your configuration on that. I don't feel like I necessarily have to have a solid 20, 24, 26, 30, or what have you to answer the question on, can we start interviews? What I really needed to know is, do I have the functions right? Is the job right? And then if a person
But
says,
Jenna-
"Eek, I can't do 30, I could do 20, or vice versa, you know, then can we have that conversation?
Jen, I really like that, but also I think within the ad, we have to give the potential candidates an idea of, because a 20 is very different than a 30. So, I mean, maybe we compromise on 24, but
Well-
realizing that there is flexibility, or we give a range.
Right. Why? Yeah, maybe 20 to 30, depending on, I mean, I think we could find language that will allow us to have a range and help candidates understand we're open to hearing what your availability and interest is.
I think also one of the other things, it's important to think about which of your things that the director is charged with doing would be done by the director, and which of those things would have to be done by a director, and which of them could be done by the assistants. Because there are certainly things in the job description that you would want, I would think that you would want the director to do, but not necessarily an assistant, while there are many others that could be done by either the director or the assistants. And I think that's something else to think about.
Yeah, you know, I think that overseeing staff for me would be a director role pretty clearly, and relationship to trustees would be a director role. And I'd have to go back and look at the rest myself, to be honest. But if I had a staff with certain strengths and skill sets, I'd be inclined to build off of that. And if someone's a whiz at facilities, right, you're going to all over the buildings all year. You know, I think you can really look at who you have and try to work with some of that depending on your staff. So again, I'm not sure that I would necessarily need to know that right out of the gate to move forward on finding candidates, assuming that they're strong enough to delegate well and manage all of those functions.
Okay.
The only thing I would say, just to kind of follow up with Catherine, is the only difference between the giving of the hours is any benefit, because if you go to 24 hours, you do offer the retirement piece. And I'm not even sure what that is. It's the Vermont Municipal Employees Retirement.
Employees retirement, yeah.
Okay.
Beamers.
And then the only other thing that I was thinking, if we go back to our pre-COVID hours, the library is open 22 hours. If you're starting to think about adding in a Monday or a day to allow for, you know, little ones to come in or someone to use the computer space or whatever, I think it would be right to offer the new hire the same amount of hours that you would physically have the building open. So those were my only two thoughts. To have that enticing piece perhaps of the retirement, that would require the 24 hours and a minimum of 22 on the current hours that we have the library open.
Is it advantageous, I wonder, and Jean can probably answer this for us, but to actually have dedicated time and hours when the library is not open, where you can just do the book work, the paperwork, the phone calls, the thinking, some of that is more protected, uninterrupted time? I see you nodding, Jean, so maybe that would be helpful.
I think a question too would be the assistants. You know, is the assistants the front desk person, and And the director would then have time that they're not dealing with the public. I would throw that into the question. I'm not sure if Jean is talking, or it looks like she's talking, but we can't hear her.
Go ahead and say something. You want to say something? Jean, they're asking you, do you want to say something?
Marcia, did you want to say something? I just saw you come on.
I don't need to add anything right now.
Oh, okay. I did notice one difference from so we were basically using Jean's job description earlier, which was incorporated in this. So you streamlined it, I think, a bit with bringing in the other ones and probably getting some different wording for it.
Eve, I think Marcia is trying to say something,
Oh,
but
okay.
her microphone is not on. Marcia, nobody can hear what you're saying.
You're muted.
How about it now?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go back to what you're concerned about, the description of an assistant. Currently, that is worked out with Jean. Whoever becomes the new director will decide what jobs are appropriate for a person that she hires. That's up to a director to hire their assistant. The trustees have a list of my job description. I do strictly front desk work. I do circulation as well as preparing books, processing, and I'm usually the person out front. Jean does have time to herself when the library is not open that she does her work, and that answers that question. She does have hours that are strictly her hours, and she's also working in her office when I'm working out front. And now that might change with whoever becomes a director, but that's pretty much up to the director to decide how the job can be divided. Sometimes I'm training volunteers. We do have a lot of volunteers that take over a lot of the work, not just desk work, but other work in the library, depending on what it needs to do. So if you have any more questions about that, I think I probably can answer them for you, but definitely going back to those hours that Jean has by herself. Yes, part of the director's jobs are strictly private.
Thank you, Marcia. That is helpful. And we did opt to not draft the assistant job descriptions, recognizing that the director essentially would.
Right, that's the
determine
director's job.
Yep. Yeah, so we left those alone.
Yeah, good.
One thing that was different, I'm just kind of throwing this out for the other trustees, although I guess it was kind of the way that we worded it, was the Vermont Public Library certification or a master's in library science. That's the master's in library science isn't listed. Do we care?
Yeah, Jenna and I talked about that because I assumed it would go in there, but Jenna, you had a nice point about maybe not putting it in there. Do you want to recap that?
Yeah, I mean, my question on that was, is that a deal breaker for the trustees? Is that a requirement that you would lose a good candidate over? And I ask that because, again, I go back to my experience of Vermont's struggling workforce issues, is that I would only put a required education on something that really was a deal breaker. And if it's not and it's negotiable, then I would put it perhaps as preferred or as something we would like to have, but I'd be willing to consider other things. And I really can't speak for the trustees and whether or not that level of education is a solid, steadfast requirement. If it is, I would imagine the candidate pool would be much smaller. And then the possibility that someone who has that level of a degree with perhaps, I'm just imagining student loan debt or a need for more full-time work, again, might further shrink the applicant pool for this job that's not full-time. So I was more trying to set a minimum standard with preference for hire if we can, but if it's really not something that you feel like you've got to have, I'm not sure I limit your pool by putting it as a requirement.
I don't think that we had it as a requirement. I
No.
think we had it as a preference. I would
Yeah.
have to go back and look at that.
Is it
Yeah.
preferred credentials?
Yeah. And we
Okay.
had Vermont Public Library certification required.
Okay, so using Jenna's argument, we can definitely put it back in as welcome, but not necessary.
Yeah,
So,
I just was noticing it wasn't listed. That was it.
yeah.
And I do think I might have had a little input on that when I was referencing the Vermont Libraries Association, where that's where we went for. They had a lot of information about typical hours, typical pay range, and they had that as their minimum or their typical standard for a requirement across the state, the way that it's worded in the job description now. That was from the Vermont Libraries Association.
So I guess, Jenna, what do you need from us now? I'm looking at the time and I'd like to be done by 9.
Yeah.
Personally, sorry. So yeah, what do you need from
And we
us now?
still have the community group to go to.
Yeah,
so,
I was gonna call it out on that.
yeah, I guess I would maybe, if with the trustees, like a week to review and get back to us on any other points that you might like change. Do you feel like we're ready to go forth and start with the steps that were outlined earlier on in terms of drafting actual job advertisements and start to get ads running and develop an interview schedule? Is that, you feel comfortable with us moving forward on that?
How do people feel about the job description? I'm personally, that was my one thing I wanted to ask, which I wasn't even uncomfortable about. I just was wondering, did people, other trustees like the job description? Or do you want more time?
I'm okay with it.
I think it's fine as it goes. If they just might add the possibility of a master's degree, not required, but approved. Preferred, thank you.
Teresa, how do you feel?
I think it's very thorough. Okay. And I agree with Marcia. There are parts that are pulled into that could be delegated out as the new hire might see fit. So yeah, it's quite thorough.
Mark, I'm forgetting if you said something. I'm sorry.
I said thumbs up.
Okay.
Yeah, I excuse me.
So
I approve of the of what's been drafted.
So Jenna, I guess we're okay with that piece. So the next step then, I guess, would be drafting an ad. Is that what you were
Sounds
saying?
like it.
You're thinking? Yeah.
It sounds like it.
Okay. So Anna, did you want to talk towards the community?
Yeah, so I think kind of running in parallel with this, I'm going to try and share my screen here. I cleaned this up, but it should, for everyone on the committee, this should capture what we had spoken about before. We looked at community input in kind of a more holistic way, looking at what points through the hiring process it would make sense to incorporate community input in what ways. And so this is what we're recommending. At this stage, kind of as we're gearing up to do the search and a little bit before the search, we want to send out a survey to gather input and then also potentially have some kind of listening sessions. So meetings like this, but that are really just about hearing from community members if that's a better forum for anyone. During the hiring process, so having the committee as part of that, recognizing that several of us are, community members who are not otherwise affiliated with the library. We do think it's important to also have staff participate in this process. And so I think that was something, Teresa, I don't know if you've already connected with other trustees about that, but I think that was an open question as well, that we felt like there should be a request. And I know that a lot of the staff are on this call, but we would love to have some kind of staff representation in that interview process. And we can kind of decide, based on what a staff member is willing to do, what they feel like they have time to do, what that looks like. And then before kind of a final offer, if this were not COVID times, having sort of a library walkthrough and making sure that any finalist is able to kind of see the facility certainly and meet any staff that they would potentially be working with, as kind of a two-way opportunity, for the staff to meet them and for the finalists to meet the staff. And then after hiring, as more of just kind of a open session with the public, making sure that there's some opportunity for the broader community to be introduced to the new director in a more public way, and make sure that that is shared. So that's kind of the summary of how we saw this coming together. I think that right now our focus would be on that survey to gather input. It would be a pretty short survey, and I can show you what we've put together for that. And then those community listening sessions, where we're really inviting people to just kind of share whatever they want us to channel into that interview process. Yeah, so let me also just show, so this would be the survey. We've really tried to kind of frame it as, an invitation to be part of this process. We've tried to keep it really short and sweet, really focused on the hiring process. We know that Mariah and the staff have a survey out about programming right now. We don't want this to be confused with that survey. And so this is really inviting just kind of 3 questions about vision for the director position, 1 question that they might want to come up during the interview process, and then kind of weighting some different things in terms of how important the community members feel these are in that position, and then an open question at the end. So I think we feel like this is a couple different avenues to bring community input into the process at different stages through it, and that it kind of checks the boxes that we feel need to be checked in terms of having the right voices in this. Committee members, did I miss anything?
I like the survey.
And I think if we, when we send the survey out, we could kind of, if we are able to figure out timing for the listening sessions, we can kind of do that together. And I think it's, just trying to have as many avenues for as many people to share their voice in whatever way is most convenient to them. I think that's the main goal. So we can post the survey at the end of the survey, also say, do you have more that you want to share with us, and make sure that people then have the info for joining a listening session. But yeah. So unless there are any concerns with any of this, then I think that's, oh, and then so down here, in terms of where we might ask for some help, I think we do want it to be an online survey, and then also potentially have a hard copy available. Although I'd love to know, like from the library staff, how they've been doing that with the current survey, and if there are any tips, because that sounds like there's been a strong response to that one in terms of getting responses here, and then maybe making sure that we're just getting it out in as many avenues as we can digitally, and then also potentially as a hard copy. So
I like it.
Was more about the timeline, but
I think it's
about that.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anna.
I'm gonna stop sharing now. Yeah, any questions, any concerns?
What do you need from us right now?
So I don't, maybe all the staff are already on this call, but I think we would love to have a staff member that can be part of the process. Marcia, I see you. Is that a
Marcia's waving
salute?
her hand. You're muted, Marcia. We can't hear you.
We still can't hear you, Marcia. Are you able to unmute?
Yep.
There you are.
I'd love to be part of the process.
Great. We would love to have you in the
you.
process.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
so with respect to, for your time outside of library duties, I think we're happy to have you involved in, you know, as if you want to kind of be in every committee meeting going forward. We spoke about that in our last meeting, that we'd love to have someone there, because I think there's also, you know, a perspective that staff members have that we don't necessarily always have. But if that's too much, I think the minimum that we would want is involvement in the interview process.
Yes, I definitely would like to be involved in the interviews. But I as soon, if I know when the meetings are, I can tune in. Yeah.
Okay, we'll
problem.
keep you in the loop for that, and hope that you can join for whatever you can, but definitely for the
All right.
interview.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
And if I can just weigh in on the community input part too, but I think just in general, I think at the bottom of the last part of your screen, Anna, was just a timeline. And so for a lot of the, you know, setting up the survey, getting the, maybe having some community forums, I think to conceptualize those, a timeline would be helpful. So I don't know if the trustees had a timeline in mind.
Teresa, did you want to say something along you and I had talked about a timeline when we were talking budget?
Yeah, there were a couple of things that were driving the timeline. But Sean, I'm just curious, or Anna, if you can help me. Community input, can we go ahead with posting and advertising and be gathering community input simultaneously?
I think so. Yeah, I think that how I would see the input coming in is by the time we're interviewing candidates, then anyone involved in the interview process, we can kind of, you know, I think we decided that it's not appropriate to have a totally open, totally public, you know, interview process with community members. So I think that then, so long as we have input at that point, so that we can kind of represent any questions or concerns or hopes and dreams of the community members, then that's the goal of it. And then within that job description, if there are certain things that have come up about kind of, you know, importance levels of different things, maybe that's something that then we take into account with kind of what, you know, candidates are in front of us. But I think we can definitely do both at the same time.
Okay. Well, noting the time, and I don't want to stop anyone who felt they had more input. I would like to, I don't know, Eve, you tell me if this would be appropriate. If I would, do we need it to be a motion to charge the committee further, or do we just go ahead and tell them what the next step would be? But I would like to suggest that our hiring committee go ahead formatting the advertising piece and the parameters. Hopefully we can nail down the hours and then eventually reopen the search. A timeline, I was hoping that perhaps February 15th, if the hiring committee could reconvene and try to complete that task. And then if we could ask the board to have a special meeting on February 22nd to approve what the hiring committee had drafted for advertising, and to go ahead and say, yes, we're ready to reopen the search. That would give us the month of March to have the job posted, to be bringing in applications. That would give us tentatively the month of April for interviews and reference checks. And then ideally, I think, and Eve and I had discussed this, possibly that we could have a board approved appointment by town meeting by the month of May. We have the potential of turning over 2 board members in the month of May. We have all of these people have put in all this time, and I just think it would be nice if we could work within that time frame. So if we had a time from working backwards being the town meeting, we've already put in the first month of gathering the job description and the community piece. And the guidelines that we were sharing with you earlier recommend this whole process is a 3 to 6 month process. So January, February, March, April, May. Does that sound reasonable?
Teresa, could you, I heard everything you said, but I think I lost a little bit of track. Did you have, as one of the next items on the timeline, having the hiring committee meet and reconvene to debrief this meeting and plan that out? Or when is the hiring committee meeting next? There's no meeting on the calendar.
There is no meeting on the calendar.
And I know that needs to be warned, and we're not supposed to take action over email. So
Right.
I'm curious when the next meeting is. I feel like I want to talk to the committee again and have another committee meeting.
Right. I was thinking if we didn't feel pushed, if we could put it out there for February 15th. That would be a week from today. To ask for the hiring committee to get together, talk about everything we did here. I have all of the budget that I can put on the Google Docs for sharing, so people could be looking at the hours piece. And then at that meeting, I guess we would be looking to pull together an advertisement, a job posting.
So I'm gonna jump in, and it's with what Teresa just said, but it was like 2 minutes before 9. So does the rest of the board want to have this special meeting to talk to the hiring committee on the 22nd, like Teresa suggested? I'll still be on the board.
The only purpose of that meeting would be so that you would basically give the hiring committee the green light to say.
Right. To hear see what you've done at the 15th and then go for there.
I think it's reasonable, Eve.
So let's have a meeting at 7 o'clock on the 22nd, and the hiring committee do their thing before that.
Sure.
So I am rushing us a little bit at the end here. Action items, just kind of to put that, one of the action items is that we're going to have the meeting on the 22nd of February, which will be warned as a special meeting. We could figure out how we're going to term that, and the agenda is what we just said, but how to word the agenda later. An action item that I had, the only thing I wrote down was that Teresa's going to work on the efficiency of Vermont thing. Was there anything else that came up that needs to be in the minutes as an action item for the last?
I need to contact Janet Zug and talk to Kay about the books.
Okay.
Which are pretty minor compared to the rest of this.
And is the hiring committee comfortable with meeting on the 15th and kind of picking up where we left now and going to the next step? Okay, good.
That sounds great. And also it sounds wonderful to have a big picture estimated timeline. So thanks for that.
Teresa, what time?
What have we been doing? 7? Does that work for people?
And is the trustee meeting on the 22nd, is the special meeting agenda just for this topic, or is it the other action items that?
I think it's just this topic.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I might, and I don't know what the interaction between this committee and the trustees are going to be over the rest of the timeline of the hiring process, but I recommend having maybe a committee report out earlier on your meeting agenda instead of at the end. Just so that way the trustees can pace the rest of their agenda items to end at a certain time after they've heard the report from the committee. And then you have committee members who can, if they don't need to be there for the rest of the agenda, they can leave if they need to. So that could be a suggestion for regular meetings.
I mean, the 22nd is going to be the only thing. So.
Well, I imagine there'll be more committee report.
Yeah.
future trustee meetings. So I was making a recommendation for other
People
regular
pop the meetings.
meetings if there's a report out.
I was going to adjourn unless there's other comments. So somebody move to adjourn the meeting.
I move to adjourn the meeting at 9:00.
Second,
Second.
vote. Vote to adjourn the meeting. So I adjourn the meeting at 9:01. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Great to see you.
Thank you all. Yeah, exactly. Wonderful to see you all. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Ooh.